in carrying out the various types of qualitative research designs, you might want to know a little bit about the different approaches that are out there. So there's narrative research, phenomenology, ethnography, grounded theory, case studies, and those are just a few of the major approaches. And there's some overlap. Sometimes, you can kind of combine those to a certain degree. So narrative research. Narrative research is the type of research where we're getting information about the lived experiences, and this is through obtaining people's stories. So this tells the story of individuals unfolding in a chronology of their experiences, set with their personal, social, and historical context, and including the important themes in those lived experiences. So you can think of this happening spoken, where there's an audio recording that's obtained, and then it's transcribed. And there's computers that help do that too, where they will transcribe a whole oral interview. This can be written. You can have people fill in information. It can happen on a computer. These can occur through working with individuals or a focus group. And these are often in-depth and time-intensive endeavors. So in the case of like the qualitative inquiry about the Pruno and the CDC doing their investigation of botulism outbreaks in the prisons, they were interviewing people and kind of asking them a lot about this practice and learning the chronology of it all and where it happened and how it was happening. So that was a narrative type approach. So in their example, they actually interviewed staff, inmates, and parolees from one prison about production methods, social aspects, strategies for communicating the association between botulism and Pruno. And they interviewed 27 inmates, and 13 were included in that, and 13 staff. And this was published in the American Journal of Public Health about 5 years ago. Very high impact journal. And it's qualitative research. So it's only got 40 interviews that made up that publication. But those 40 interviews took a good bit of time probably to obtain. So that was narrative research. And I don't want to just focus on the botulism, but narrative research can sometimes happen in a lot of other different disciplines too. So don't think about these qualitative designs just happening in public health. Sociology, uses this. History uses this. All right. So phenomenology. This explores, describes, and analyzes the meaning of a lived experience. So it's kind of the essence of what's going on. So we select an event, issue, or topic of interest. We figure out what was experienced and how was it experienced by participants, involving time-intensive interviews. So this isn't so much about the historical context and all of that. This is about kind of what does it mean? Maybe even how does it feel? How was it experienced? Think of how would you ask somebody to describe how they felt at a concert? Think of drug users, how it made them feel. Think of how they feel when they're wearing a mask in public for COVID-19, transmission reduction. You can figure out, how people feel and experience it. These are, again, time-sensitive and time-intensive interviews. And the data are collected and analyzed with a focus on significant statements or themes, trying to find words that people say repeatedly from different individuals. All right, the next approach is the ethnography designs. And this is kind of understanding how a cultural group works, or how to see the beliefs, languages, behaviors, and issues going on. And that's a typo, not an intentional thing. And this is often very extensive in terms of field work. It may not be very useful if the people don't trust you. And this is very time intensive. You have to have respect. They have to respect you. You have to respect them. Sometimes the researchers can be accused of being non-objective and biased because they suddenly feel like they really, really enjoy and appreciate the culture that they're working in at a level that may make them less objective, and they may have a compassion for their community to the point that some will speculate that they're biased in their observations. And from a anthropology, ethnography, primate, study. Jane Goodall was accused of being non-objective and biased in her studies on primates. She studied these populations, she got to know them, she recognized their cultures, and people said she was not able to study them as non-biased because she had such passion for these individuals. Other aspects of qualitative research design, in many cases there's also often a socio, in this I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but there's income differences in many cases between the researchers and the communities they're studying. There may be race or ethnicity differences, religious differences, and these are just things to think about. And research that is ethnography based, here's a cartoon. Can you hurry this up? I have a report due on this tonight. The anthropologists and even public health folks studying these cultures, you have to be patient with the community that you're working with. These, again, are time intensive, and we have to be cognizant of the differences and how it could be perceived, that it's always one particular type of person doing the research. Person's got a doctoral degree, money, maybe they're from a European nation, or they're white, and they're looking at a population that might be in a different part of the world, and every researcher that they've ever interacted with is white, and they never see researchers who may look like them. These are things that we have to be aware of. We have to be cognizant of them. All right, beyond ethnography, there's also grounded theory research, and I've seen this used in safety science a lot. This is a qualitative approach that aims to generate, discover, construct a theory that is an abstract analytical scheme of a process. So the interview is driven and it's also hard to figure out when you've got enough supporting information to say, yeah, this theory is probably right. So when do you stop doing the interviews? How many people do you interview before you realize your theory or your abstract analytical scheme might be right? So sometimes this is used to figure out the decision-making process persons use in making decisions. So here's an example. This was just published in June of this year. Critical factors for the use or non-use of PPE among construction workers. So trying to figure out why they do things, and you may have reasons or beliefs on why they may wear PPE or not wear PPE. And you could potentially ask these questions in a quantitative way, but qualitative designs tend to be the ones that we associate with grounded theory. And here's a whole abstract on it. You've got the slide on it. They had data were analyzed using a 3-stage coding approach to develop a grounded theory model. So they were coding statements that were given to them. And some of the factors included, having experience around accidents or maybe no accident, their attitude, habits, perceived risk, their general safety conscientiousness around them, perceived ease of use, the usefulness of it, peer pressure, social influence, with the boss keeping on them, safety management, and rules and supervision and training. Did it affect their ability to get their job done? Was it affecting time? All these things were things that were asked about that could be coded, or they may have a general open-ended questions, and they could identify which things came up first. If we do a quantitative survey and tell them to rank them, it might not be as genuine. And the last approach that we're going to just briefly mention are the case studies, and we've seen these in epidemiology as well. And the final product of a case study is a detailed report, which will include an in-depth description of the case, including an explanation of the system in which the case kind of originated, and in some cases the statements or lessons learned. In some cases, a case study includes quantitative information about the case, but it should also provide qualitative information, some background about how the case came to be. So we're going to do a review here in the next video on the different types of approaches that are out there. So we're going to do those questions here in the next video.